Mic test. 1, 2. Standby crew. 3, 2, 1. Rolling for On Her Side.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to On Her Side. I have with me today my guest Sheila Malik. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Jazakallah for coming onto the program today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
No problem at all. So today we're going to be discussing a very important but also a very sensitive topic. It's a very difficult topic for many, and although a lot of us might be suffering through it, a lot of it might be experiencing it, sometimes we're going through it too quietly. And so the topic that we're exploring today is infertility, and really wanting to discuss the emotional impact that it has on women and married couples, and the psychological distress and impact that it has on marriages. Infertility, unfortunately, is on the rise these days globally. There's many reasons for it. We have anything from age-related issues to stress, anxiety, depression, poor diet, nutrition, pollution in the air, environmental factors, so many things. But regardless of why it happens, one thing is for sure, as I mentioned, it imposes a significant amount of stress. I know that you are the proud mother of...
I have 4 children.
4, I was going to say 4, sorry.
And I have 2 grandchildren.
And 2 grandchildren, mashallah.
Mashallah.
And I know that when we spoke, you had mentioned that this is not something that you're prepared to speak about. But I encouraged you because I think we do also need to hear from people who can be a source of support to those women who unfortunately are facing such challenges.
I didn't realize how deep the emotional impact really is.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
That's what it is that women who are going through, these types of issues are suffering too quietly. And before we begin, I want to preface the discussion by saying that, unfortunately, I was one of those women, and I was diagnosed, with unexplained infertility for a period of 7 years before I was able to have my daughter. So it's been quite a journey for me as well. And I'm really hoping that, today our discussion we can collectively explore what kinds of supports and resources can we provide individuals who are going through this really, really emotional time. And I was reading, there was this major research study that talked about the level of stress that women who are experiencing infertility is the same as the level of stress reported by those women who have been diagnosed with cancer. Yep. So this is the level of stress that it causes.
I'd heard that too, but I didn't make sense of it because, I know people with cancer, and that's awful. There's treatments, there's they have to adjust their diet. My own mother-in-law had cancer, and we helped her through that. And that was a real struggle, and the medical appointments and things like that.
Yeah.
I actually thought that if you have infertility, that's it. You just wait.
Yeah.
I had no idea what else is going on.
Yeah.
And the emotional strain and the financial strain.
Yeah. So after you get married, unless, God forbid that there has been some kind of a defect at birth, which you are already aware of, generally speaking, this diagnosis or this, learning is going to come to you as a surprise. It's very hard to categorize, sometimes even in your mind. Is this a medical condition? I use the word diagnosed, right? So for myself.
Yeah.
So for myself, my journey, it was more of a medical condition, or is it a life event? For some people, it's a life event. It has happened. Yeah. Now you have to move through it. You have to grieve or whatever it is that you need to do.
Don't you think it's related to expectations?
Yeah.
There's an expectation. Okay, I have daughters. They're going to get married. And then they're going to have children.
Yeah.
And that's the natural progression.
Yes.
It's the circle of life thing.
Yes.
And so you expect that to happen. And if it doesn't, then the questions start, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, I've been one of those people who would ask those questions.
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
How are you? Not trying to say it exactly, but hoping for a response.
Yes.
And I had no idea how much I might have been hurting that person.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is probably one of the most common questions or topics that women will explore in social circles,
Yeah.
in conversations,
Yeah.
almost immediately, after
Yeah.
a girl is married, and quite openly as well, as you say. So, I mean, we don't want to doubt anybody's intentions, but definitely for somebody who is going through some challenges, it's quite difficult to manage, and it's very stressful. And regardless, there's various levels, I think, of grieving or acceptance or that process that you need to go through. So we've established, of course, that it does impose stress on the relationship, So firstly, you need to be able to speak about it amongst each other, amongst the two partners.
The husband, obviously, he's stressed too.
Of
he
course.
he has that expectation
Of
too.
course, of
And I feel that maybe they have less opportunity to vent their emotions.
Yes.
And so who are they going to vent their emotions
Yes.
with?
Yes.
It's going to be their life partner,
Yes.
who's the wife.
Yes.
So she's carrying her own emotions.
Her own burden. Yes.
And she's also carrying the emotions of her husband,
Yes.
who doesn't have the opportunity to vent those emotions
Yes.
to anybody else but
Yes.
Allah.
Yes, yes. And right now we're not even talking about which side this problem comes from.
Right.
It could be from either one. We're not
Exactly.
saying that it's the woman's problem.
Exactly.
We're saying that no matter where it comes from, they're a garment for one another. This is
Yes.
what it means.
Yes.
At the same time, open communication is so important.
Yeah.
And to make things worse and to make things more difficult, just from my experience, you may not even be on the same page at the same time.
Precisely.
So,
yeah.
for example, when it happened to me, I was of the opinion that I'm not going to accept this. This is not my fate. I'm going to fight this, and I'm going to explore whatever treatment I can, whatever options I have available, I'm going to explore it. But my husband was not interested. So he wasn't there at that point. Like, everybody has their own
So
emotional
he wanted to wait.
emotional journeys. Exactly. So imagine then, having to reconcile that difference of opinion
Yeah.
when you're going through something that is so deeply painful. So there's the first level, which is between the married couple, so between the two partners. Then you've got to explain it to your parents and the family,
Right,
right? And then the third step is society at large. So when you're at public events and you come to the mosque and you need to explain it, somehow you need to be able to come up with an answer.
So that Manasa, I found really difficult to understand. Like I said, I did slip a few times, but there's one fundamental teaching that we have as Ahmadi Muslims, as Muslims in general. In fact, all believers believe that Allah Ta'ala is the creator.
Yeah.
So if Allah Ta'ala is the creator, then why are people questioning whether or not you have a child?
Yeah.
Your own dealing with this issue, the emotional strain and everything else, that's a genuine struggle. But this, this other sort of army of people
Yes.
who have all these questions.
Yes.
I was thinking about what you were saying about strategies, and the only thing that came to my mind was I would ask them I would say to them that I'm going to pray for you.
Yeah.
I would say to them, I would like it for you to say to me, I'm going to pray for you, because you haven't fully understood that it's Allah Ta'ala who's the creator.
Yeah.
And Allah Ta'ala decides to create in the most unusual and magnificent ways.
Yeah.
There's stories that we're told,
Yeah.
and there's stories about children,
Miracles
about the
and-
miracle
yeah.
of
Yeah.
children. It's the will of
Absolutely.
God. And I mean, in ancient civilizations, they would deify a woman, right? She would be the fertility
Yeah,
god.
yeah, yeah.
And they thought that it was the woman who makes the child.
Yes. Another very important thing for people to understand is that whilst you can support by praying, we don't want the sympathy. We don't want people to pity us and think of us as victims. We want empathy, which is compassion, right?
Yeah.
And thinking and asking, what can I do for you? What can I do to make you
Right.
feel better?
That
Or
would
what
be
can
powerful.
Right.
That
So
would be
that's what we
effective.
need.
Yeah.
But not just that. We need that at the appropriate time. So I'll give you an example. There's this girl who, told me that she would accompany her mother-in-law. They used to live together in a joint family, and so they would be going to all of the weddings together, all of the
Social
events
events.
in the mosque as well. And every time her mother-in-law would introduce her, she would say, "This is so and so. She's my daughter-in-law. She doesn't have any children. So can you please pray for her?"
Right.
This was like the script. Every time she went anywhere, she would hear this.
Yeah.
And it immediately took out all of the fun that she could have potentially had at that venue,
Right. Because everybody's
because
enjoying.
now she's been
and
brought back
she's-
to that reality.
Yeah.
And by saying, by asking someone to pray, she's feeling like she's a victim, like there's something
Yeah.
really, really
No,
wrong.
I'm worried about it's Allah Ta'ala knows the right time, the right place,
Yeah.
the
And
right
the right
people,
person,
and you never know why your purpose in life.
Yeah.
Maybe you're destined to do other things.
Yeah.
Maybe you're destined to have children at a different time period. Maybe you're destined to have. Maybe you're destined to adopt a child.
I think it's also really important that women who are experiencing this begin to feel that they need to get out of this self-stigma. There is a stigma that society attaches with you. Why are you not
Absolutely.
having children? What's wrong with you? Is it you? Is it your husband?
Absolutely.
All of those things, right?
Yeah.
But there's a self-stigma concept as well, where the women blame themselves,
Yeah.
and they feel sometimes even as if they're not able to fulfill the purpose of their own creation, as you mentioned.
Right.
And I think your point is so valid, not only for those who are seeking to support these women, but the women themselves,
Yeah.
to understand that it's not your job in a way.
No.
Right? It's Allah Ta'ala
Yes.
who decides when, where, how, who, what, when,
Yes.
and things happen.
Yes.
And you need to recognize that your purpose is, whilst this being a very important piece as well,
Yeah.
but it's not everything there is about you.
Absolutely
This
not.
is not defining
If you think about what's the purpose of marriage, some people say it's for you to have children.
Procreation,
But
yes.
but it's also the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, "Marriage is my way,"
Yeah.
and the Promised Messiah Islam explains this as well, that it's the way to keep us pure.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So we are married, and then it's Allah Ta'ala's choice if He gives us children, when He gives us children, whether we have girls or boys.
Yes.
All of those things, whether they're in their abilities, their disabilities, that's all Allah Ta'ala's choice.
Yes, exactly.
That's not for us to question.
Exactly. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've been offered homeopathic medicines,
For sure.
different prescriptions,
For sure.
with anecdotes about how it helped so and so, and at the worst, most inappropriate times.
Yeah.
you
I mean,
know?
there is a lot to be said for those things. It's like
For
you
sure.
said when you introduce
sure.
the topic, that
Absolutely.
it could be nutrition, it could be
Yes.
pollution, it could be
Yes.
other things.
You want to
Yes.
give them that advice. I
Yeah.
think picking the right time and space for that is very
Yes.
key.
Yes.
And then the other thing I wanted to talk about too is that, we talked about whether this is an ongoing medical condition or is it a life event. Either it's going to happen, not going to happen. And there's so many scenarios, there's so many complexities that come with it, where one of them being that sometimes you end up conceiving, but then you end up having a miscarriage.
Yeah.
Right? And this happens a lot. It's
Yeah.
very common.
I did miscarry.
Exactly.
I did
and
miscarry
as did
a couple.
I.
Many people do miscarry.
Yeah.
And it truly, people say, oh, it was only a few weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
No.
No.
You have an attachment,
Yes.
and you do grieve.
Yes.
And you
Yes.
grieve sometimes immediately, usually much later.
Yes.
and it's horrible.
Imagine how much pain it causes to the person who was waiting
Yeah.
for so long
Yeah.
and was struggling
Yeah.
and was facing all of these, pressures and things like that. And
Exactly.
then they have to go through the highs and the lows
Yeah.
of having to lose a baby,
Yeah.
and it's quite painful.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that we mentioned there's treatments as well. There's options that you can explore. Some of these are very expensive and
Very
can put
expensive
a lot of
as-
financial
it's
pressure on the
financial
marriage.
burden, yeah.
But even if it is not, there's so much hope that gets connected with it.
Yes.
And then the hope has to come to a low almost every month, right?
Imagine the chemical processes
Yes.
that are going on inside
Yeah.
your whole body
Yeah.
and your brain
Yeah.
every month.
What kind of chaos that brain
That's-
must have.
Imagine how easy it must be, or how impossibly difficult it must be to focus on your career or your work or even your housework, even your day-to-day,
Yeah.
getting up and getting on with life.
No, it is quite an ordeal, and I think that, firstly, women need to forgive themselves. They need to find some support in their faith. Now, sometimes it's difficult, as you said, for men to express how they're
Yes.
feeling. Sometimes the problem is coming from their side,
Yes.
which is extremely difficult for
Yes,
them to reconcile.
exactly.
All of these pressures that come from outside that
Yeah.
home is tough indeed. All I would say is that we need to build some empathy in
Yeah.
us.
So I was thinking about that. I wanted to know, when you were going through this, did you have a good friend who you were able to share everything with, who, outside of family, outside of everything else,
Yeah.
who supported you?
I was very fortunate. My best friend was my husband.
Okay.
So even
Okay.
though we did differ, we had different opinions about how to approach this, and at times we're going in two completely different directions.
Yeah.
But I think we never stopped wiping each other's tears. Everybody deals with emotion
But
differently.
I was thinking a lot about that, and not everybody has that
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
And I think that this is a program for our sisters to start thinking
Yeah.
how we can be better sisters.
Yeah.
And I think that somebody in that situation should be able to have a friend who they can entrust with the whole story, who can be with them and help them to create that shield around them.
Yeah.
So that when the barrage of questions come, the friend can help them. The friend doesn't have an emotional attachment in the same way as family do.
Of course.
And this is our sisterhood as Lajna. We are sisters to each
And
other.
we shouldn't
and
be
can
fearful.
support-
I mean, sometimes it's the person themselves who is so fearful
Yes.
about speaking out, who feels perhaps shy about speaking or sharing.
It's
But I
personal.
think if we talk about
Yes.
it brings more awareness to individuals who are
Yeah.
not going through it, and it
shouldn't
builds
be a
empathy.
taboo. It shouldn't be a taboo. It should be something that we
Yeah.
can share with each other,
Yeah.
talk to each other about, and encourage each other with prayers. I mean, obviously everybody goes through challenges, and I've been through some very heavy challenges, and there's some really good prayers that help you. Ya Hayyo Ya Qayyum Birahmatika Astaghiz. We have that power of prayer. And so that creates that shield, that barrier, the inner strength
Yeah.
to fight that inner stigma and stop the negative energy, right?
Yeah.
The negative energy comes from the stigma. If you can replace that somehow, you can't do that on your own.
And then also just to understand that, you can't always please everybody with the right answers, with the right, you're never going to be able to do that. The people who
Society's
will
never happy.
Exactly. We will ask questions about, why aren't you married yet? How old are you? Then she gets married. Well, why haven't you had children yet? How long have you been trying? So they're never going to be happy. And I'll give you.
And you've had 3 girls. When's the boy
I was
coming?
just going to say. So
That was my
somebody
situation.
actually came to me when my daughter was born
Yeah.
and said, "You waited all these years. The least that Allah Ta'ala could do was to give you a
Oh.
boy." Can you believe it?
And not in this day and age, honestly.
So this is what people think. This
Yeah.
is what people think.
yeah.
Is that if you had to wait this long,
Allah Ta'ala warns us in the Holy Quran that there were those people who did whatever their ancients did, their forefathers. We're
So this
in the
just goes
modern
back
era.
to the empathy,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So, and we need to stop pitying these women, thinking of them as victims, and instead trying to see what can we do for you. How can we help you through this?
Yes.
And sharing in that grief.
Sharing in that grief can work in many ways. I've done a lot of work on this. I think that definitely, I really believe that the friend is an important one who can help you to also make sure you're looking after your physical health.
Yeah.
Your physical health is really, really important, not just because so that you're well enough to conceive, but generally,
Which might still happen, by the way, because sometimes it's not necessarily permanent.
No,
it's exactly
it's not.
up to Allah Ta'ala, as we mentioned.
Allah's
It's
fixed
the
a
will of
time.
God. It's on a fixed
Yeah.
time, so you still need to take care of yourself.
You have to take care
Yeah.
of yourself. You have to continue living. You have to continue doing all those things that Allah Ta'ala wants you to do.
Yeah.
And you have to go out, get some fresh air, eat well, socialize with people who have a positive mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And positive friends,
Yeah.
and you need to keep busy. Imagine if you didn't have any occupation and you're at home
Yeah.
with this suffering. I would like to say that I'm going to be the first to say I want to be a sister for anybody who's going through this, because
Inshallah.
I've learned a lot, and I want to right my wrongs, honestly.
And one of the really important points also for women to understand is that sometimes it's actually women who are placing blame on women. You know what I mean? So it's actually, I gave you the example of that girl whose mother-in-law would always introduce her in that way.
Yeah.
I have personally known women who have suffered at the hands of their mother-in-laws and have never been able to be forgiven or to be able to forget this reality of theirs, throughout their lives. Meanwhile, in the same household, you have their father-in-law, brothers-in-law, even their husband, who have always been nothing but kind to them. And I know that this happens. And sometimes new fears are put into this woman by these other women, fears of losing her husband because he's just going to be bored with her and he's going to get remarried.
My goodness.
Sometimes fears of having just a very bad marriage for the rest of your life because now there's nothing to bind you to,
Oh my goodness,
sometimes this type of experience is exactly what can actually bring together a couple and make them so connected. And even if it took this sad, unfortunate reality, but if your marriage becomes stronger because of your partnership and your bond and your commitment to one another, that's the most amazing outcome that you could
how
ask
unfortunate for the mother-in-law.
Yes.
She's missed that opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah. I was thinking actually of something mentioned earlier about the role of women. Think of Hazrat Aisha radhiyallahu anha. She didn't have children. I wonder how she felt. And yet, she ended up being known as Hazrat al Mu'mineen, the mother of the faithful. So she was the mother for all of us.
Imagine that prestige and that position.
Imagine that. I mean, so her role was reserved to not have her own personal children, but to have
and it's
all
exactly
of us as
how
her
you
children.
said, is that you have a purpose no matter what, right?
Yes.
So some people's purpose is fulfilled when they become a mother to their own children.
Yes.
And some women's purpose is something different, which Allah has in store for them.
Yes.
And so to have faith and to believe in Him and to trust in Him will get you through this time, inshallah.
Absolutely. And when you have that situation where you are overwhelmed by everything that's going on, Rabbi inni maghlubun fantasir is such a powerful prayer. And Allah does help.
Inshallah. Jazakallah for the amazing conversation. And Jazakallah for coming as well.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Cut. That's a wrap for On Her Side.